blessing, unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, self-lovers. Welcome back to the Self-Love Show. I'm your co-host, Dawn Light. We are live on Thursday today. Welcome to the show. And in case you're new to us, we're so grateful you're here and tuning in. And just in case you don't know, we're on all the platforms. So we have an amazing body of work at this point, 3 years or more worth of content. Go tune in, check it out. We're really excited to keep sharing the message and broadcasting the frequency of self-love and the medicine that is really in that experience, because it's a daily attunement to it, to our heart, to spirit inside. And we desire for everyone to expand in their consciousness, the state of loving that we are. And so, meaning us, you, all of us, we all embody that frequency of love. And it makes our life more rich, more fulfilled in every way. Who doesn't want more rich, fulfilling experiences, relationships, the juicy juice of life? Yes, yes, yes. So today's going to be a great show. I have such a dear sister with me today. I'm going to read her bio and do a beautiful introduction for her. So this is one of my beautiful sisters I attended USM with, and Joanne is her name. And so the topic of today is really great. It's self-expression and self-care as a way of self-love with Joanne Rodriguez, sharing tools and practices that will support you in dissolving emotional, mental, and physical blocks that get in the way of creating the life you want to live and experiencing the love you truly desire. Joanne is an embodiment coach and an integration guide who supports individuals in embodying practices and rituals that support in facilitating healing from generational trauma, past experiences, low self-esteem, and a sense of unworthiness in order to step into greater freedom of living and expressing life through your authentic soul's essence. She studied at the University of Santa Monica, where she immersed herself in the principles and practices of spiritual psychology, consciousness, health and healing, and life and mastery, giving her an edge in the coaching world because she imbues practicality with spirituality in her work with clients. In addition to many other healing modalities that she has learned and practiced along the way, nothing compares to the rich experience that life has given her in order to learn lessons that she came here to share with others through fun, inspiring, and compassionate ways. So we'll share more about Joanne's work, but welcome, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you for reading that bio, very elaborate bio that I wrote. Thank you. Very excited to be here with both of you.
Aww.
Joanne, what I really loved about your bio is that you wrote in the practicality piece. And I think that sometimes when we're spiritual beings living in this world, it's hard to live in the world and to be like really evolving and growing into our spiritual selves. So I love that you're weaving that in, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I hear you when you say about when we're on this path of discovering ourselves as spiritual beings, right? We often forget that we're also human beings. And that's where the practicality comes in, because we all have needs, desires, certain things that we need as human beings. And so it's important to also weave in the practicality along with the spirituality. So I guess that's where that comes from. And that's also where embodiment, embodied alchemy, embodiment coach, embodied alchemy to me means like weaving in the spirit to alchemize whatever we're holding inside our bodies.
Because that's the thing, like we can't transcend our bodies in the moment, and that we're working towards the higher levels of consciousness. We can't like disown the body and actually be with it. Like one of the things that I've been learning in the last few years is to really take ownership and kindness with my body as I'm going through some health journeys and some health experiences. Like, oh, I have to listen. And um, not every day can I do my workout, or not every day can I do these things, that I have to really listen to what's actually happening here.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And you said like kindness, right? Like bringing kindness to yourself, which I think is a huge part of self-care and self-love. So it ties right into our topic today.
Mhm.
It it really is everything, because the body speaks so loudly. And the truth is if you have unresolved parts or unresolved material that's residing, like old imprints or memories, it's going to be stored at the cellular level at some place. And sometimes it's kind of time released. It bubbles up in divine timing. And when you have the capacity to actually do a deeper dive into it sometimes, and upping our self-care is so crucial. And, people think that, self-care can have this kind of, oh, do our nails and do our hair. And, but it's actually internal self-care looks so radically different. Right. And I'm going to give the floor to you to kind of maybe share a little bit about what do you feel self-care is for you, and like what this means for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. And I agree that yes, we have this image, or I guess these concepts of what self-care is, like getting our nails done, taking a bubble bath, going somewhere luxurious, and all that is wonderful. And yes, it's beautiful to be able to engage in those practices. And self-care also is deeper than that. It's learning to listen to the body when it needs rest, when it needs sleep. Like that's a huge part. Or maybe it's, bringing practices of exercise into the body, movement, like whatever is needed, right? Like good food, like what you're ingesting, not just physically, like in as food, but also mentally, like what are you ingesting? Are you listening to the news? Where are your channels? Where's your information coming from, and what are you listening to every day? So all of that, I think, is part of self-care.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. I've had a lot of experiences. So I'll just be really radically honest. It's like I picked up a parasite last year in I haven't been able to figure it out for the last whole year. And now I'm like, oh, I had to really learn to listen to my body. That yes, getting my nails done was for this and for my own like expression of it, but really listening to when to work out, or what to eat, or when to call on a mentor or a friend, like, and to really learn to self-source a lot of those needs. It was really, really, really powerful. I'm curious if you have any like a journey of how you got to want to be an embodiment coach.
Yes, I do.
Great.
Thank you for asking the juicy questions. So yeah, I do have a journey, and I know that all of us here have a journey. Everyone listening has a journey, and that has led us to wherever we find ourselves at this time. And I think for me, it's important to, before really getting into like the present, to share a little bit of my past, a little bit of the history, just so that the audience gets a concept of where I'm coming from, or where I came from, and how that has morphed into, now being this embodiment coach, where I also support others in coming into their own self-awareness and divine selves. So for me, the concept of self-love, or love in general, was one that was very distorted from a very young age. I grew up with an absent father, and also a mother who had borderline personality disorder, what that did for me was it created a very unstable and unsafe environment. So at the age of 6, I was sexually abused by her boyfriend. And I share that because I feel like that was such a significant time in my life. Like it left an imprint that shaped my beliefs about the world, about myself in that moment. And it's something that I carried with me up until my, adult years. And even now, I don't think it's something that I will ever get rid of. And not that I'm trying to get rid of, but, it's been a long process to come into an acceptance of what happened, what was my journey, and learning to just love those parts of me that went through that. Because at that time, I didn't have the support. This is something that happened and I had to hold it in my body. I wasn't allowed to speak about it for years. It wasn't until the age of 33 that I really was able to start voicing it out loud. So from the age of 6 to 33, I carried this shame, like deep shame, deep guilt in my body. And which led to a lot of self-destructive behaviors, right? Making very poor choices in my life and having this distorted view of what love is and not really knowing what it was. And so in that, I invited or accepted people in my life that were abusive, that were toxic. And yeah, it all led to where I'm at today. So I guess to kind of make this story short, it was really like the breakdown of a marriage that I was in that really led to my healing and to begin to question, like, what is real love? Like, why have I put myself in these sort of situations that don't feel good, but yet I continue to stay? And so it was through the breakdown of that marriage that I began to seek, a path of healing, a path of restoration. And what I discovered was that I really needed to express myself, right? I really needed to share what had happened, what I had been through, and expressing not just with anybody, because, sometimes not everyone is going to be a safe place to share these very vulnerable and honest things that I went through. And so I began looking for those safe spaces to be able to self-express and share. And through the self-expression, healing came through. And in that, also an awareness that I really had not been taking care of myself. There was this sense of like neglect. I had neglected myself. I had, self-abandoned because that's what I had learned. That's what was modeled to me as a child. Yes, my physical needs were all met, but my emotional needs were not. My mental needs were not. And I feel like, I'll speak for myself, like being in this line of work, it's like the reason I'm able to do this and hold space for others and be very compassionate and empathetic is because I'm a very sensitive being. Like I can really sense, the energetics of things, and I feel a lot. And so as a child, having all this, feeling the world around me, the people around me that were in so much pain and hurt, it was really, really difficult. So it led me to this path of, of where I'm at today. It was like through that journey of seeking healing for myself that I came to where I'm at today, which is a good place. I would say, yes, a really good place.
Your story is so beautiful to hear and valuable. Thank you. Thank you for sharing for our audience. And I mean, I can relate. I too share a very similar path in that way, and very sensitive being just like you. And it's all for our spiritual growth and learning. And this has been your hero's journey to overcome and come home to the places inside that have hurt and make peace with. And so you don't have to see it in your perceptual filter anymore and the reflection of others, because you're experiencing love, true, authentic, connected love now, because you're not needing to rehash what has the hurt that still was holding you in that vibrational place. And so I just celebrate your journey. Like you've done the inner work, you're doing the inner work, and you're holding space now. This is what happens with the healed self. Like you reach a place in your curriculum that yes, the curriculum is still there, the memory is still there, but you've transformed it in a way where now it's a gift. Now it's an offering to those that are others that are on the path, that have walked in those shoes, and they're not quite there yet. And they can mirror neuron with you and say, oh my gosh, yes, I want that. I can follow in those footsteps. Tell me more. And you're here as a guide now to say, hey, I understand what it's like to be in those very, very vulnerable, tender places. And here's how you navigate it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I truly believe this because I experienced this myself, and maybe you, Trish, and Dawn have also. But it's like the most painful parts of my life, right? It's like once I was able to turn that around and alchemize it and heal it, it's like that is what becomes my medicine for the
Yes.
others, right? Like it's like now I'm in service. How do I take this like such a painful experience and turn it into something beautiful so that it's not lost?
Yes.
Yeah.
So true.
I think that many of us have had very similar experiences in childhood, and that's why there's this sort of band of love workers or light workers or, therapists in the world or coaches or, that we're all seeing like, hey, self-love, the acceptance of all parts of self as being strategies, as being ways that we learn to meet needs, as ways that we learned how to connect and find our path forward. And I think it's a really powerful place for us to be in, to be like, hey, I see you. Come here. Let's share you out with the world, or let's make sure that the people who need to see you and need to get your medicine are there listening. And I think thank you, Joanne, for being here. Like thank you, Dawn, for bringing your beautiful friends.
Yes, thank you, Dawn.
It's such a gift, it's like spirit led. Here we are. Like Trish has been my soul sister for so many years, and we've the joy of doing this. And Joanne, you and I have had the gift of like really being in the heart of the healing together and learning the tools and doing the work, and now we get to celebrate that moment together. It's so tender for me. It's like you've watched me go through the deepest levels of healing in my experience of, being in the field with, USM now. Like it's been 7 years, and it's such a freaking gift, and it's the gift that keeps on giving forever. And just the healing, the amount of healing that has taken place. And I can just only speak for myself, but it's mind blowing. The healing that's taking place in my life. And now the healing's taking place in my clients' lives, to see it taking place, and just this ever flowing, endless cup of unconditional love just oozing from my heart. It's honestly, there are no words to describe the gratitude that my soul has for this life and this experience and the healing opportunity that's available through the work. And so I just want to speak to our viewers. If you're suffering, if you're in a place where you don't know, or, if you're in the heart of it, just keep going. Just trust your process and reach out to mentors like us, because this is the magic of it. you are going to get to the other side. And it all starts with self-care. It
Mhm.
all starts with self-care.
I'd love to talk a little bit about so how these mental and emotional blocks begin. So we started with the childhood sort of
Mhm.
conditioning. And
Mhm.
I mean, there's social conditioning, childhood conditioning, early young adult, our own personality, identity, and ego. Like I call that the pie, personality and identity and ego stuff that we create conditioning around what we want or our strategies to get our needs met. And I'd love to go in a little bit deeper around that because there's pieces in the in your bio and in your show description around dissolving the emotional, mental, and physical blocks
Mhm.
to get there and how do we integrate them?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So the mental, emotional, and physical blocks. So I feel like for me, the emotional body carries a lot of like energetically, it's just very heavy, very heavy. And so in order to begin to release some of those blocks and dissolve some of those blocks, like it's been a journey of learning to listen to my emotions, to feel like what am I feeling in my body, because I think in in our I would just say yes in our culture, but also I think this is worldwide where we're so taught to just continuously think our way through things, right? Like when I ask someone, how are you feeling? Well, I think I am, this. Like I don't know if you experienced this, but sometimes I experience this, especially when I'm starting to work with someone new to this work. And so it's more of dropping into the body of like feeling, okay, where are you feeling this discomfort or this stress or this tension? Like where in the body? And from that place, it's like you presence it. And I want to share a tool in a bit about, just taking everyone through the process so that they get to experience it. But it's more about experiencing, like feeling that, not making it wrong, not judging it, and through just being in acceptance of it, I feel like those emotional blocks or whatever has been placed there, it's like they begin to dissolve because all they're really wanting and seeking is an outlet. They're wanting to be seen, right? And so that's all it is. And they want to be heard. A lot of times it's like parts of our bodies, these unintegrated parts of ourselves just want to be expressed so that they can dissolve.
Mhm.
So that's been my experience with that. Yeah.
Are you,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you just shared and said. It's so beautiful. It's absolutely the work. Would you like to share your tool? Are you ready to do
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to. So I have two tools to share today, but we'll start with this one. And I think the other one's like really just more of like this beautiful, it's going to leave everyone feeling like really yummy inside. So this is the first tool, and this is really to dissolve those emotional, mental, physical blocks that we're holding in the body. So I'm just going to invite everyone, as long as you're not driving or moving, to just close your eyes if you can and really get in touch with your body. So tuning in and just taking in a deep breath here with your eyes closed. And maybe placing one hand over your heart, maybe another one around your belly, if that feels good for you. Just taking in a few breaths here. And I want to invite you to think of an uncomfortable situation that you recently experienced. just think about something that you're carrying that feels heavy in your body. Maybe it's something that's still unresolved for you. And just notice where you feel it in your body. Notice maybe you're carrying it in your chest, your throat, or maybe it's in your belly. So just notice where you're feeling a tightness. And once you presence that, just breathe into it. Take a few breaths. And let it know. You could say this out loud, or you could say this inwardly, that you see it. Like, I see you. I see you. And ask if this part of you has a message for you. Maybe it has some insights. And if nothing comes up, then that's okay too. But just continue to be with this part. And as you're feeling it, I want you to give it a rating from a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe ask or see, how strong do you feel it? 10 being very strong, 1 being not at all, hardly there. And just continue to breathe into it, continue to be present with it. Noticing your body, noticing where you're feeling tense. See if you can relax a bit more. And now just inviting you to bring forward a light of grace, a white light. Just imagine this white light coming through the crown of your head, the top of your head. And just let it beam down all through your body, maybe starting from your forehead, all the way down, covering your cheekbones, dissolving any blockages or any stress that you may be holding in your body. Just allow this white light to cover those parts, embrace those parts. Bring it to the area that you were originally focused on. Maybe it's the belly or the throat. And just allow this light to fully embrace and dissolve. anything that is not needed, anything that's no longer serving. So just taking in a few more breaths. And when you're ready, you can check in with that part of you. Just see, going back to the rating scale of 1 to 10, just notice if it has gone down a bit. So if you rated it a 6, notice if now it's a 5 or a 4. The sensation or the tension or the stress. And so when you're ready, just open your eyes and thank yourself for going through this process.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
The weaving in and coming back to self is one of the things that I absolutely just adore. Because so one of the things that I work primarily with is abandonment trauma and self-abandonment. And when I teach my clients to come back to self constantly, like, where are you abandoning yourself? Keep coming back, and to see the place, to give it a rating, and then to come back to actually address, like, what's happening, what's shifting. And I think that's incredibly important because we're training ourselves to come back home.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of making home an external place, right?
Mhm.
The external home, or within another person, or within your best friend, or with the money you make, or the job, or the car, or the whatever material, or who knows. People used to build homes somewhere. Future plan, speaking for myself.
Yeah, I love that you say that. It is a coming back home, a coming back to yourself, because home, I think we've all heard this, home is where the heart is, right? Like this cliche, but it's so true. It's like, this is home. Like whenever I come back and tune into this part, this is the stillness, this is the presence, this is like, nothing is wrong here. Only peace. So
Love that. Nothing is wrong here, only peace.
yeah.
Yeah, it's such a deep offering, especially if you've experienced, like we all have had, unfortunately, abuse in our narratives as children. We've all experienced that here in this conversation with the three of us. And for me, a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, it's definitely a place of reminding the young one inside, you did nothing wrong. And that is such a deep repatterning offering when you're reparenting that part of self that has felt like, I do it wrong, or I'm not enough, or I'm too much, or a deep misidentification that can still be held there that's creating the pain. And just allowing yourself to fully come home there and bring love there and connect there. And the practice you led us through is so beautiful, because it's really teaching one to like actually source there, and that it's safe to go there. It's safe to access it. It's safe to be with it.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Dawn, because that word safe, I know for myself, and also when I work with clients, accessing the emotions could be very scary at times, especially in the beginning, because what I hear a lot is, there's so much there that I don't know what I'm going to find, or if I open that up, if it will ever stop. It's like never ending, right? And it often feels like this well of grief. And I know in the beginning for myself as well, when I started on that journey, I also felt the same. It's like, I don't even want to go there because I don't think this will ever stop. And I just want to remind everyone that it's like your body holds its own intelligence, and it knows, how much it can release at a time. And just know that when you allow yourself and you give yourself permission to access and tap into those emotions, that you won't stay there forever. You won't stay there forever. And this is where also, working with a coach, a mentor, someone who can create that safety and that safe space until you feel strong enough that you can hold that for yourself. That's where that's important. Because I know for myself, and I know you, Dawn, like, we went to the University of Santa Monica, and that was like a huge space for safety, right? But it was like a container, like it held us, it supported us in order to feel like, okay, I can let this go. And if I can't, like, I have someone there to help me navigate through. So I think that that's also important to highlight that yes, you're always safe and it's okay to go there. But if you really don't feel like you can do it on your own, then always, reach out for help, because that is a form of self-care, self-love.
And about picking and choosing who can hold you there. I have some rules for myself, and one of them is like, to go to my therapist and coach first, because they are people that are specifically designed to hold my stuff without judgment, and that's where I process it. So self first, the other people, my coaches next, and then really try not to put that pressure on my partner or my best friends. But I also have really good friends, great friends like Dawn, that can hold all of the without judgment, without trying to fix it, without doing anything. Just like, okay, what's going on in your life? That's a lot of stuff. All right, what do you want to do about it? You just wanted me to listen? Fine, great, okay. Not everyone is available to hold the bigness of our life or our emotions and our sensations or our feelings. Like, for example, I have a client right now who is looking at masculinity from a different lens. Like, this is what we're doing. We're kind of deconstructing some of the really harmful body image stuff around, how patriarchy tells us about body image and all of these things. And he's looking at masculinity like, oh my God, these things have dehumanized me as a man. And who do I want to be? How do I want to be a man in the world? And kind of looking at all of that stuff and being like, I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what kind of men to talk to, because most of the men are participating in these harmful places for themselves and for other people. But I don't want to be that kind of man. I want to be a different kind of man. So he's feeling, like, who do I talk to about this? And finding himself in those places of like, where I used to go no longer works. Now I need to find new strategies and new community. And I think that in that place, it's like really being very picky and choosy about where you share your deepest vulnerabilities.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, because, this brings back, like, when I mentioned, when I went through my divorce, and that was like my ultimate breakdown, and, eventually led to my breakthrough. But in those moments, I was going through a divorce. I also have a child. I have a daughter that I share with this person. So it was really difficult and challenging. And I had all these emotions and all these things that I was feeling, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I would reach out to the friends that I had at that time, but they could not hold it. Like, they didn't know what to do with it, right? Like, it was too much for them. And, I know they did their best, but they really could not. And so it wasn't helpful to me. If anything, it kept me like in this like cycle of like, just self-judgment and self-loathing. And so you're right, Trish. It's like you do have to seek those safe spaces and people that can hold it, because a person that will be able to hold you is someone who has gone through their own processing, right? Who has gone through their own stuff and has come through on the other side. And not to say like, we're all healed and perfect. No, we're still in this body. Like, it's a never ending journey. But, you have been there. And so you could bring great compassion and empathy and hold space and non-judgment. And also you have tools, tools to share. So that's where the practicality comes in, right? Like, yeah, tools.
Right. And the place of, if we're going to some people who we feel safe with, but they haven't, let's say I'm getting a divorce and that person is like, well, you didn't do these things right, or this person or wants to play the victim triangle game, and you're like, I'm not there, I just really need some like a hand on my back. Or if you're kind of like, your stuff is touching their stuff,
Yes,
right? And invoking them to either work on it, or they're pushing it away, which is also not helpful. More judgment is not helpful.
Yeah.
If you want to keep the problem, judge it, resent it, run away from it. Like, there's ways to just like keep doing the thing, but actually really like acceptance is the place of really holding in the self-love. Is like, oh, there's that messy side of this person. Like, I wanted to bring in a little bit of the integration piece, because I think that, man, we've really learned ways to part ourselves out. We've really learned ways to make and judge ourselves for just being human. Like, oh, we've talked about a lot of this on this show, is like the spiritual sort of trope around like anger is low vibration. And how that looks. But anger is actually a really beautiful emotion that shows us our boundaries and shows us what we really want and need, and how to protect ourselves, and how to really show up in our honesty and truth, if we can find ways to communicate that, without depressing ourselves, or without morphing ourselves into something that we're not. So it's like there's these places where we've parted, like, oh, angry Trish, or whatever, and how do we integrate those pieces?
That's a great question. And I love that you're bringing this up, because, anger is something that carries so much stigma around it. And I once read this and it really resonated with me, but it said, anger is just the bodyguard to sadness, because underneath the anger, there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of grief. And so, like you said, anger is just a way, like it protects, right? It shows us where our boundaries are and who has crossed it. And it's really important to accept those parts of ourselves that we are going to have those emotions of anger, of sadness, of depression, sometimes feeling like low. And those are the parts that we don't really show to the world, right? Especially with social media now being so active, everyone being so active. It's like all the joy and the lightness and the spirituality is like what's highlighted and applauded. But yeah, anger is something that is important. And for me, like, I'll speak for myself personally and how I've learned to integrate those parts of myself. So, I mentioned in my story, like, from the age of 6 years old to about 33, I like literally held all that shame, guilt, like anger, right? Resentment, all those things were like being contained in this little body, and they needed to come out. So at times early on, it would come out very explosive, because it was like, okay, I've taken on so much, like a volcano, it just erupts. And I learned to judge that part of me, because it was like, this isn't helpful. It only makes things worse. And I don't like myself for doing that. But when I began to actually look at that anger, understand it, that I have a right to be angry. There was something that happened and it was not okay, right? It's not okay with me. And
Mhm.
so once I began to accept that, I began to find some ways to to express the anger. Again, self-expression, right? So I did that through various ways, but one of the most simplest ways, and Don, I know you know this tool as well because we learned it at USM, but it's like the freeform writing, like just getting a piece of paper and just like writing all the things, like without a filter, like cursing, anything I want to say. Maybe someone triggered that anger, right? Maybe it's like my ex-partner. And so just writing it out, everything I would want to say to that person, but not actually saying it to them, writing it on a piece of paper and then not reading it, but ripping it up, throwing it away, washing my hands, like clear of it. I'm done with this. But that is like an outlet for that anger to come through. So I think that's just one of the things I've done. I think, sometimes it needs to be more physical, like where I've taken like a boxing class to just get some of that anger out. But I had to go through that because when people meet me, I get a lot of like, you're so sweet. You have this loving, kind presence about yourself. And yes, I do. And I also have this other side, that has had to be expressed. And it's not out of me. It's like always going to be there. And I actually really like that part of myself because it brings fire. It's like when someone crosses a boundary that's not okay with me, it's like, no, like that's not okay. Now I'm able to contain it in a different way. Whereas before when I shared, it was more of like all over the place. Now it's like I'm able to contain it but also not judge it. Like I accept it. And that's one way that I've learned to integrate.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really clearly resonate with what you're saying. It's like I too am a child abuse survivor, and I was so scared to own the angry part of me and to actually be okay. It was like I pushed it away. I judged it. I was like, I don't want to be like my father. So I would avoid anger, but then but I had rage inside, unmet rage, which underneath was unmet sorrow and
Mm-hmm.
ache and sadness, just deep sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a well that I had to navigate and start to heal. And, it's like it really taught me how to come home to myself and the anger and the sadness that are there. But really, what is so powerful that came out of it beyond my own healing is I actually learned to embody a rage practice and like give that space in my life. And not to say that I go and rage on people because it's not that, but I have tools that I've cultivated that I give to my clients that are like beyond just freeform writing. It's like a process, like beat the pillows. I'll share a few. So one is like, you could go buy really terrible dishes that no one's ever going to use, mix mash dishes at Goodwill, and go find a safe space that you're not going to hurt anybody, that you clean it up, wear glasses, and go say all the things that need to be said in that moment that were never said. Pick one moment that you are so enraged about. I had to work with one memory over and over and over again to heal deeply around what took place in my childhood. I picked one memory and I worked with it over and over and over again until I got out all the parts of myself that were not claimed at that time, all the parts of my voice that never got to actually say, how could you do this? It is so wrong that you treat me this way, right? And not to get in the space of wrong and right, because I really believe that that's what we're stripping away is the narrative of right and wrong, black and white. But I felt violated. And
Right.
that's a lot of times what happens is there's a deep betrayal or violation or something we're working with that just feels so not okay in our body, in our being. And we have to give it a voice. We have to own it. We have to own our power in that moment. And that's taking back what is reclaiming our power in that very core moment, and basically moving away the fog and the confusion of the experience and integrating it into your body by reclaiming yourself in that moment. And sometimes a physical act of like beating a towel against a wall or breaking a dish and saying, how could you, and really giving yourself the physicalness of like actually getting it out of your body. And resourcing that memory so that it doesn't have to live in your lived experience now through a person you're enrolling unconsciously. So it's like people don't understand. A lot of times clients come in with confusion around, I don't understand why I keep having this pattern still. I've done forgiveness work around it. I've forgiven it. I don't understand. And it's like, well, there's still emotional material here for you that you've not processed around the core imprint. And we have to dig back in time to find the core imprints, the time periods, that what age were you, what happened, where were you, what was said, and we have to source it one by one and reclaim that power there, reclaim what was lost, reclaim and give yourself an opportunity to say with your voice and your heart and all of your energy what you never said in that moment that you wanted to. And it is amazing how the things just fall away once you give yourself space to do this. And like we like to say in USM, there's a conversation that goes on around, it's like taking it off like an old coat. You learn to take off the pattern for good. And you're not wearing it in your consciousness, and then you're not wearing it in your lens of perception, your perceptual filter, because our reflection, outer world, is a reflection of inner world reality. So every beautiful soul we have opportunities with, the hard ones, the good ones, all of it, it's all a reflection of self. And so we get an opportunity to come home to the parts of self inside that hurt. And so actively engaging in what I call rage anger practice is healthy. But you just promise you don't hurt anyone. You're not going to hurt yourself. You do it in a conscious, loving, intentional way. But if you cultivate it and cultivate that space when you're doing the deeper dive healing work, man, does it make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. And that's beautiful, Dawn. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree. And those are some of the practices that I've also done myself, to sticks and actually beat them against a wall. And, but it's so important to do that. Yeah.
Well, that's the part, like all these sort of ugly, we'll call them, parts. I mean, that's what they're called. Like that's what the social sort of idea is. Like, these are ugly parts of self, and I'm like, nope, those are just parts of self.
Yes,
that is part of you, all of you. That is you, and to disown that piece is a continued version of self-hatred or a continued version of self-harm. Like to actually say, I can love me in my anger or my depression or my sadness, or I can love me in the places where other people don't want to be around me because it touches their stuff. Or I can be around whoever in their deepest, darkest moments and not judge them for being human. We are all humaning here on this planet, working it out all together. We all have the same stuff. I mean, we can continue to pretend that we don't have the same stuff, but it's not really working. And that's why we're all here, is to really just fully love and in our embodied selves, the other embodied self of another person and their wants, needs, and desires. And there's 8.25 billion realities or more on this planet. It's like, can we meet those people where they are and meet us in our stuff, meeting them, and to really expand our capacity for compassion and love and all of that. Ooh, this conversation is stupid. Yes. It really is, because some of the things like that I've shared this story many times on this show, but one of the things when I first got into spirituality, there were things that really harmed me. The idea that I couldn't be angry or sad, like all of these were less than something, and it made me disown deeper parts of self, like in my 20s where I could have been exploring my anger and frustration. Like I didn't feel angry until I was 26. Like I remember the time where I let myself just like scream at someone because he was so frustrating. And he's still a dear friend. And he was like, "Oh, you're angry," and kind of like was like, "Huh," da, da, da. And I was like, he made me even angrier. But because I had created a belief when I was very young that anger wouldn't be my first response
Mm.
because it scared me as a kid. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand angry. And so I created this whole thing. So then in my 20s, I'm diving into belief systems and understanding that, you are what you think and like all of these things. But I had so much underneath that I hadn't processed it, or I hadn't integrated my youth or the things that had happened to me or the like massive traumatic experiences. And that those beliefs that sort of like the look good that we talked about, like all the Instagrammy spiritual look good stuff, was really not helpful for me. It in fact caused me another like realm of trauma, of
Mm.
consistent traumas that kept me from exploring. And so when I got to, with Dawn, she always held me in my moments. She's like, "Okay, well, sounds like you're angry. What are you going to do with it?" I don't know what I'm doing with it. Like, and I would internalize it, and it caused depression.
Mm.
Right? I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I'm bad and wrong for being angry about things that had happened, and I should just forgive and let go. And yes, but you actually have to process out all the angry and all the frustration. I had to feel the feelings, the great big wild feelings. And how many hours of that have I done? I mean, like hours of pounding pillows and like screaming and writing poison letters and like hours and hours and hours of that. Like, and I want our listeners to understand, like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not like you do it once. You write it out once. No, no, no. It's layers, it's hours, it's days, it's years of processing this information to be even more loving. So if you're like, well, I can't get there, like I can't get where you're at because I don't have the money or the finances or the attention or the time. I mean, that's why the show is here. This free show giving you free tools every week to deeper self-love and consistency and commitment to yourself. Like, this is it. And this is why we keep doing it. It's like, hey, we've got Joanne Rodriguez on today teaching us how to really bring us home, back to our own home and back to ourself, and to help us integrate so that we can keep moving forward. It's a practice. Self-love is a practice.
Mhm.
Loving each other is a practice. And we get
Mhm.
better at it, and sometimes we take steps back, and sometimes we get better.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mm.
Mm.
I really appreciate your time today, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you and the opportunity to be here and share and just connect with you both and just hear about your stories as well and practices. And yeah, I've enjoyed this so much.
Us too. You're such a gem. You're a gem in my life. Thank you for being in my life. I love you so much.
You're a gem.
I want to know, tell our listeners and viewers about your work and like how, if we were curious to work with you, how does one go about that? And like, what are your offerings? And we're just curious. Tell us.
Yes. Okay. So thank you for asking. So right now I have two offerings that are happening. One is a live workshop with me. And so if you live in Southern California and you're local and you are free on Saturday, July 22nd, I've created this workshop, which is really going to be really beautiful. We're going to be experiencing some of these self-care, self-love practices, some that I've shared here. Actually, they're going to be different, but it's going to be a really beautiful space and container for you to be held. And we're going to do some chakra throat clearing activation for self-expression. We're going to just be nourished and loved in this beautiful container. So if you're interested, you can reach out on my Instagram page, which is Embodied Alchemy Coach. And you can also email me at embodiedaLchemyCoach@gmail.com. And I also have another offering that's happening. It's starting August 8th, which is the Lionsgate portal. And it's a very powerful time cosmically and energetically. So it's a great time to start something new, start a new project. And I'm doing a 6-week online group course where we're going to take an intention, a dream of ours, and we're going to let it gestate and move it through to bring it into fruition for the next 6 weeks. And it's going to be really beautiful. There's going to be more information to come. Again, you could find that information on my Instagram page, or you can email me, and I'm happy to share more details or even connect. Yeah. So.
Ooh, wee, sounds juicy. Juicy offerings. Oh my God.
About all of it.
Get on this love train. Let me say, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Like, I'm stoked for your people to come experience this.
Yeah, I'm very excited for them, and I'm just feeling really grateful and blessed for the opportunities that are coming forward and coming through as well, because it's like, through the process of healing, it's like it also opens up channels of creativity.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, yes. Yeah. As you heal the shame and the guilt and the trauma and the things that we hold inside and judge, then once they're released, that stuff is sitting on top of your gifts. Mm-hmm. And so all these are your gifts and your offerings to the world now, because you've done that work. And not to say that your work is done. We're women. We're always doing it. And you're having access now to that creative channel, and here's your beautiful offerings in the world, and I celebrate it. It's like, yes, it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Happy
dance.
Well, yes, so happy dance. I too have a beautiful offering coming, which is really exciting, and I want to share for a moment. So August 15th through the 18th, we're going to be doing a 4-day Sovereign Queen activation. It's a challenge, but it's a free 4-day event live online. And you can come be in the inside container where I'm going to guide you through activations and processes, share very deeply. There's going to be prizes. There's going to be every day you can come win something. And this is a place to just come experience yourself in the sovereignty of your own spiritual being and really hear the journey I've been on to arrive in my own spiritual sovereignty inside myself and in my marriage. And if you're a woman that has experienced, trauma, if you've experienced relationships that have felt out of balance, if you've been in a long-standing pattern of always seeing the same pattern recreate in relationships, if you have been in a long-term marriage and it's felt unequal, and there's a lot of tension, regret, frustration, anger, unresolved things, and you're like, you want to go to the next level, but you just don't know how, come join the activation, because this is all woven in, like my healing, what I've arrived at, how I've been able to create a complete role reversal in my marriage and stay married, heal my marriage, and celebrate 20 years together this year. Profound. And I'm offering this from my heart to yours. It's all free. It's really a deep place of transformation for women. And I want you in the container because this is an upgrade opportunity, vibrational upgrade all around for your sovereignty, to come home to the places inside that hurt, the patterns that you just haven't been able to heal or get through. This is a deep dive, a look into it, and a new tools and practices to take away. So it's a huge win. There's, again, I'm going to say there's prizes every day, a big prize at the end. And it's August 15th through the 18th. Please come join me. The link is in the chat. And it's, in case for our viewers that are listening, it's tinyurl.com/queen activation. So excited to have you.
Woo!
Woo!
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I love that there's just so many opportunities to evolve, grow, and learn and be held by incredibly powerful and loving, authentic teachers in the world.
Yes.
Love you.
I'd love to give a shout out to Love Coach Academy, Global Peace Tribe, Scott Katamas, and Sign Network for sharing us out far and wide. And also to our lovely, lovely assistants, Roy and Russell, for making the Self-Love Show possible every week.
Yes.
And to KPFC 88.1 for sharing us out every week in our little small town of Lakeport. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Joanne and Dawn.
Thank you, Joanne.
Much. Thank you both. Thank you.
We will see you